What's been your sense of the feedback of the book? I mean, what have you heard from people in the business? Have they said, we're going to do this. This makes a lot of sense, or just people pleased that you've identified the way that this.
Well, almost a universal response has been that this is really important, right? That the opportunity to learn from failure isn't generally there, and I think the chief executives tends to look at the book with trepidation, right? Because it's sort of saying, well, And we found some that gravitated to it, and some would say, ultimately I have to make the call. No, thank you. The more interesting response has been lower in the organization, right? Because what we give is license for discussion. And what we found is that this has been a way for people to start talking about the conversation without challenging a particular issue.
Right.
Right. And I think that's very healthy.
Sure. Something else I meant to get to as well, it relates to some degree to one of the audience questions I didn't mention, which was, obviously there are going to be examples of initiatives that were deemed failures at a certain moment in time, but then either paid off or they were salvaged. And I think about that a lot. I mean, we who look at market sentiment talk about the capitulation. It's gotten so bad, just get it out of here.
Right.
So I noticed, not to pick on a particular company, just this week, the retailer Talbot's sold for $75 million a chain J. Jill they bought for $500 million 3 years ago. And the question is always going to be, is that the actual rock bottom level that business was ever going to be worth? How do you know the difference there?
Yeah, sometimes you have to sell because you have no choice, not because.
Course,
right. There's a concept that a friend of mine, Dave Pottruck, who was the CEO of Schwab a number of years back, wrote about what he called a noble failure. A noble failure is one where you did all the analysis you could, you put the best people on it you could, and you went for it as hard as you could, but in the end you lost in the marketplace. But then you learned from it, right? You sort of pulled out the lessons from it. That's a noble failure. Right. These are sort of the ignoble failures, right? Where you didn't do the analysis that you could have done. You went in too early, and all that. I think noble failures are fine. Noble failures are necessary for innovation. You just don't want to be in the other category.
Right. Well, I think that was another example of good idea, but what's the price?
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. Sort of George Fisher's reaction at the end of his tenure when somebody asked him, you lost whatever $100 million, billions of dollars on your efforts here, and he said, you call it a loss, I call it an investment.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's another. We were chatting last night about what one of the inputs of corporate culture is the self-image of that culture, whether it's in its community or because of its history or anything like that. It's got to be a very difficult thing to break. This is an icon of a particular part of the country, and interesting to me too how you pointed out the way George Eastman initially actually exemplified the things that Kodak should have done right. In other words, getting rid of a cash cow type business to go to the next technological step.
He actually did that a number of times. He went from wet glass plates to dry glass plates. He went from glass plates to paper film, went from black and white to color.
Right. I think he also said, my work here is done, and then committed suicide very unceremoniously. Hopefully that's not the lesson we all draw out of his life.
It turns out he wasn't done.
No, exactly, he wasn't done, that's right. Unless we have any more questions from the back, I think I'll just say thanks. We appreciate you helping us all out here.
Great, thank you.